Okay, this is section 5.2, composition of functions, algebra 2. It's on starts on page 322, lesson 5.2. As mentioned before, a composition of functions, I like to call it a function of functions. Okay? A function of a function. Not plural. Function of a function. It's basically taking something, putting it into a factory, taking what comes out of that factory and putting it into another factory. So two things are made from the first thing that's put in. All right?
Wholesale of functions.
There you go. All right. So what I want to do is to show you how we'll begin and then look at how to put one function into another. Let's say that we're given f of x equals x squared minus 4. G of x equals 2x plus 1. Okay? A function of a function looks like this. All right, now you'll notice that when we were doing operations, that a raised dot meant multiplication. This is a raised dot, but it's open. Okay? So it's f of g of x. Okay? All right? You understand that? Okay? So it means that I can do this. It's taking the g function and putting it in the f function. Okay? This is a composition. Now watch what happens when I do something like this. Now I'm not going to take a function of a function quite yet. Okay, but I want to show you what this means. We'll just start with, by the way, a lot of students call this fog and goth. For the longest time I couldn't figure out what they were talking about, and then I understood when I looked at it again. But let's say that we take f of g of 3. Okay? So what this says is that I can take g of 3, take that answer and put it into the f function. All right? So it begins like this. F of, and I put 3 into the g function. So I take 2 times 3 plus 1. Now you'll notice that I took the 3 and I put it in the g function. So what I get is f of 6 plus 1, f of 7. Did everybody see how I got that? Yeah, I'll do it again. It's f of g of 3. It's kind of weird because we work right to left. Have you noticed that? So on this one, we work right to left. We take the g of 3 and then we put it into the f. But let me do it again. I take 3 and I put it into the g function. So I take 2 times 3, which is 6, plus 1. So it's f of 7 now. I haven't finished the problem because I still have to take f of 7. So I take the 7 and I put it into the f function, which is 7 squared minus 4.
Which equals 45.
Which is 49 minus 4, which is 45. All right? Now I can turn it around. For example, I want you guys to try this one. G of f of a negative 2, which means take the g of the f function of a negative 2. Would you please do that? You didn't get that?
No, I think.
Okay. We take a negative 2 and we put it into the f function. So it's a negative 2 squared minus 4. Remember when you take a negative 2 times a negative 2, you get 4. And 4 minus 4 is 0. So we're really taking g of 0, which is, if I put 0 in for this, it's 0 times 2 plus 1, which is 1. Okay? Do we understand that? Okay, what's really weird is we can just take a function of a function without a number. For example, if I did f of g of x, and just in general, what I could do is I could take the g function and I could plug it in for the x in the f function. This is not very fun, but watch what happens. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take everything in the g function, because remember, this is f of g of x. Okay, so I'm going to start with the g. So I'm going to take everything in the g function and I'm going to put it into the x's. If there's more than one x, you got to put it in all of them. So what I get is 2x plus 1 quantity squared minus 4. You see what I did?
Hold on.
No.
I'll say it again. If I just take f of g of x, x in general, which means f of g of x, right? So I'm going to take the x, Lila, and I'm going to put it in the g function. So when you put the x in the g function, you get 2x plus 1. It looks identical to what it was, right?
Okay, so
But
you
then
would
I'm gonna
just put in x for x.
Right.
So it's
Yep,
the
so
same
it's the
thing.
same thing.
Okay.
Now I'm going to take this whole function and put it into this x. Okay? All right? And so I have to FOIL this. Remember when I said it wasn't very fun?
Yeah.
Okay, so then I say this is 4x squared.
Plus.
Outer is 2x, inner is 2x,
Plus
One.
2.
plus 1 minus 4. So I get 4x squared plus 4x plus a negative 3.
Yep.
All right, and that's your answer. Okay, you want to know the weird thing is you remember we did f of g of 3? Remember back here? Okay, would you put 3 in for that real quick? Should we do that real quick? Okay, watch this. F times 3 squared plus 4 times 3 plus negative 3. It should be on the outside, sorry. So that's 936 plus 12 minus 3. Oh,
Wait, what did you just do?
What did you?
did I just do that right?
I am
What
not
did you
sure
put
what you
threes in there?
did.
Is it supposed to equal 45?
Yeah.
It equals 45.
Okay, this equals 45.
Okay, where did you get the 3 from?
Okay,
Did you just decide?
stop. All right. Do you remember when I went back here? I
Okay.
said, what was f of g of 3? Remember, and then we put 3 into the g function, we got 7, right? Then we put 7 in the f function, we got 45.
You just did that thing?
What I'm showing you is that you get the same answer. Okay? So which way is better? Well, this way, in this case, this is better unless you got a whole bunch of problems. You know, if you got a whole bunch of these, f of g of 3, f of g of 4, f of g of 9, f of g of negative 20, then then this way would be easier because you'd have the pattern.
So you could
Okay.
do the first part and then put whatever number in.
Yes, yes. And then you could just keep putting it in. But if you're just doing one problem, you know, it's much easier to break it up and put it in the first function, take that answer and put it in the second function. But I'm telling you that either way works. Now, could you do a g of f? Would it be the same? All right, let's take g of f, which means this, correct? Now we're going to take the f function, we're going to plug x in it. Ireland, when we plug x in it, we get x squared minus 4. It's the same thing, right? And now we're going to take this guy and plug it into this x. So we take 2 times x squared minus 4 minus 4. Excuse me, plus 1. Sorry. Okay, so what I did was I took all of this and I put it into this x. Now we simplify. Now this one's easier because I don't have to FOIL, correct?
Yeah.
All right, so I have 2x squared plus a negative 8 plus 1, so I get 2x squared plus a negative 7, correct? And that's my answer. Now, do you remember when we put in a negative 2?
Yeah.
let's see if we get 1 back.
Okay.
If we put a negative 2 in here, we get 2 times a negative 2 squared plus negative 7. That is 4 times 2 is 8. What's 8 plus negative 7? 1. So either method, and this one's not so bad, is it?
Correct.
Not so bad, is it? Okay? Alright. Now let's take a look at something else. Alright, this is if we have two functions that are expressions, mathematical expressions. What happens if we have two functions that are ordered pairs?
Good question.
I'm gonna show you. That's a 9. Oops, should have said f of x. Okay. So yeah, I'm gonna read these, make sure I copy them out right. F of x is 1, 8, 0, 13, 15, 11, 14, 9.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep.
G of x is G of 15, 5, 1, 10, 14, 9, 0.
You mean 8 of 15?
Yeah, 8, 15, did I say G?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm gonna ask is, I'm gonna say, what is f of g of x? In other words, what is f of g of x? All right. Do they exist? Now let's start with the first one. Which function do we start with?
G?
We start with a g. You're right. We start with a g. It's on the right. Start with a g. That's kind of weird, isn't it? Because we like to read left to right, but we always start with the one that's to the right. So g of x, let's go to the g of x. All right. The first order pair is 8, and what's my answer? Let me write the notation here. Let's do this. Let me say this. F of g, what's my first x? 8. Remember, we have f of g of x. My first x is 8, right?
Oh, okay.
Is everybody with me?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to see if this works, all right? When I put 8 in the g function, what do I get back?
What's the G function?
All right, here's the g function. When I put 8 in the g function, what do I get back?
The Y?
15?
15.
Y.
Well, let's go back. I'm putting 8 in for x. But when I put 8 in, the y value is 15. So whatever happened became 15. It was like a factory. 8 went in,
Oh.
15 came out.
Okay.
Okay? It's like a factory.
Okay, so when you solve it,
Uh-huh.
the answer is your Y value.
Yes.
Sweet.
Yes. All right.
So
What
we're
goes in
solving this.
comes out different. What's that?
We're solving this to see if it's 15.
Well, I'm not done yet. I've only put it in the g function. When I put 8 in, what did I get back out?
15.
All right, so now what am I going to put in the f function?
15.
15. 15 goes into the f function, and
Oh
what
my
comes out?
gosh.
11.
11.
Oh.
My answer is 11. I'll go through it again.
Oh,
That's it?
That's cool.
Yeah, that's it.
That's really cool.
Okay, let's see. All right, 8 goes into the g function,
Uh-huh.
and I get 15 back.
15.
Right.
15 goes into the f function, and I get 11 back. Now, what happens if I put something in the g function, I get something back, and then I put it in the f function, and it's not there? It's undefined. You can't do it. All right, but let's keep going and see what happens. All right, what's the next number
It's
that I'm
called
going to put in the g
expression.
function? 5. I go to the next x. What comes out of the g function?
1.
1. All right, so let's go up here.
Oh,
There's
it's 8.
1. So what do I get back?
8.
8.
All right, let's see if you can figure out the next one. It's f of g of what?
10.
10. Alright, see if you can figure out the next one.
Oh, I get it.
I get you.
Alright, this is,
What do I get back, Lila?
9.
9. Very good.
Yeah, I go back.
And then the last one, I know it's the last one because that's the last ordered pair, isn't it?
Yeah,
And it's of 9. I get 0, but 0 and I get what?
13.
13.
Alright. Alright.
What was this called again?
Well,
And what do we do?
I'm on page 323. I wanted to show you this. It says, example 2, it says for each pair of functions, f of g of h, f of g of x, and g of f of x, if they exist, state the domain and the range for each composed function. Okay, I'm going to stop right now because we did f of g, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the domain is all the x values that work. Remember, domain is x, right? So
Yeah.
our domain is all the x values that work. Well, 8 worked, didn't it? And so did 5, right? So did 10, and so did 9. Do they have to be in order? No. If you like to put them in order, go for it. All right? Now the range is all the values you got back from the ones that worked. Well, 8 worked, so I get 11 back, right? 5 worked, and I get 8 back. 10 worked, and I get 9 back. 9 worked, and I got 13 back. That's my range. So my answer should be, and they put it in order, 8, 9, 11, 13. Bless you.
Thank you.
Are we good? Okay, let's do the same thing for g of f of x, which is g of f of x. Okay, so we begin. We put g of f of, what are we putting in first?
1.
We do the f function first. So what do we put in first?
1.
1. Okay, where'd you put 1 in? What do I get back?
15.
15. Okay, Maya, what's the next number that I put in? Put it in the f function. What's the next x in the f function?
0.
0. What do I get back?
It's undefined
It's undefined. Would you tell me why, Sophia?
because there's not a 13.
There's not a 13 in the g function. So there's our first undefined. Are you following that, Izzy?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so then we go to the next one, which is what, Brian?
15.
15. What about that one? It is also undefined, is it not?
Yep.
Okay. And then the last one, which would be, I believe, 14, correct? And what is it?
0.
0. Okay. So, remember our domains are the ones, the x values that, Lila, do you have a question?
No.
Our domain is what?
1 and 14.
1 and 14?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's our range?
0 and 15.
Check that. Redo this one. The domain is 114 the range is 0, 15, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Or 15, 0. 0, 15 actually. Makes me feel better. Questions about that? Interesting, isn't it? This is called what?
Composition.
Composition of functions. So would you turn to page 325? Page 325. So 15 through 23, it says given f of x equals x plus 10, g of x equals negative 2x squared, and now they got a third one, h of x equals 5. Now, whenever you take h of x of anything, your answer is going to be 5. You see any x in there?
No.
No, so let's take, is there any just h? No. Do number 17. All right. Number 17. Number 17 says, f of, h of 0, okay? What is h of 0? Put 0 into the h function. Is there any x in the h function? So
No.
h of 0 is 5. So what do we do with the 5 then?
Put that in the F function.
Put it in the f function. And what is it's x plus 4, so 5 plus 4 is
9.
9. See how that works?
Yep.
Okay, for 24 through 33, for each pair of functions, find f of g and g of f if they exist, state the domain and range for each one. That's just like this. Right? Okay. Turn the page. On the next page, 34 through 42, find f of g of x and g of f of x if they exist, state the domain and the range for each composed function. Okay? The domain and the range, if you can get it, if it's defined, will be all real numbers, so you do not have to do that. All you have to do is say find f of g of x and g of f of x if they exist. Then we'll tie that it's all real numbers if they exist. Okay?
34 through 42.
Oh, that's not true. Some of the other ones. Don't do domain and range yet. Okay, we'll just work on that tomorrow. We might talk about domain and range on this. Okay, so, but do find f of g of x. So that would be this right here. Remember this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and then little tougher ones. Let's go to section B. Number 47. It says use the table to find each value. It says f of g of a -2. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at 47. What's g of a -2? So find the -2 in the x column. What's the g value of it?
1.
1. Now we're going to take that 1 and we're going to find 1 in the x and find the f value of it. What is it? 2. Let's do that again.
So the answer is
Oh.
2.
Yeah. Let's do it again. It's a little different look than this, isn't it? It's a little different look. Instead of ordered pairs, you got to go back to x. So let's try it again. You put a -2. Go down the x column. You find -2. It's really hard. It's the first number, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you put it in there, and you slide over to the g function. It says its value is 1, right? Now you go back to the x column and you find 1, right? And you slide over to the f function, which the value is 2. So your value is 2. All right? All right, so yep.
I don't get that.
Okay. X is, start with a -2 in x, and we go over to the g function, it's 1. We go back to the x, and we find 1, because it was 1.
Okay, so.
And then you slide over to the f, it's 2.
Okay.
Alright? Okay, so your assignment looks like I give you tomorrow to work on. Must be because you got a game.
Thank you.
Or it's just hard.
It's not that hard. Who said that?
You did. I think it was you.
Oh, I did earlier, didn't
Yeah.
I?
Yeah.
Hey, wait, good memory. Who was that?
Maya,
Lila.
I said the first part. She said, yeah, it was hard.
Let's do that.
Maya said-
We'll try inverse functions a little bit on Thursday. But I'll have some people gone on Thursday, right?
4.
FFA? No. Okay.
Because we have doctor's appointment.
Oh, okay.
We got out of it.
All right. Will you have? All right, let's get the camera on so we can tell stories.
I thought